Can you give us, Iris, an update on what is now 12 hours since the attack this Saturday morning? We're having reports through the day of Israelis being held hostage both in Israel and in Gaza. That's a major aspect of this crisis.
I would say it's the heart of this issue, and it was also the aim of this operation. Now, if you look back at the past 12 hours, you see that all the airstrikes were actually cover, kept Israelis inside their houses, kept the military, made it more dangerous for the military to go south. So they were really cover for this infiltration by Palestinian militant groups who took control, there's no other word for it, took control of a number of Israeli villages and are still there. The Israeli military is reporting that there are still gunfights in 22 sites, that in one kibbutz Be'eri in the south of the country, there are still people being held inside a public building there, a dining room there, large numbers of people being held there, even though there are Israeli military on the ground now in that kibbutz. And we have heard for the first time in the past couple of hours a confirmation from Israel's military spokesman that there are Israeli hostages. He said, prisoners of war and hostages, which implies both soldiers and civilians being held inside the Gaza Strip. And Hamas says, this is not confirmed, but Hamas says it has more than 50 soldiers, 50 Israelis taken captive.
Now, Iris, Israel has top-notch intelligence. It's not been able to foresee these events. How is that possible?
That's what people are asking here. There's been a failure of intelligence. There's no doubt about that. There's also been some kind of battle shock, you'd have to say, because there wasn't a particularly quick response. So they were in shock. They didn't respond quickly or not quickly enough. And then what we saw after that was that they didn't secure the border fence. And that's how these people who came in the morning were able to take Israelis hostage back into the Gaza Strip. They put them on the vehicles they'd come in on and took them back out.
And what about the state of play with Israeli politics? I was talking with a guest earlier about this. This is an ultra-nationalist far-right coalition government, and there have been lots of protests against it concerning justice reform. How is this going to play out?
Just this evening, within the last hour, we've heard from Israel's opposition leader, a very strong opponent of Benjamin Netanyahu, who said this is the time for a unity government. Get rid of the extremists was more or less what he was saying. Put aside all these legal judicial questions, and we'll have a unity government to fight this war. Because you want competent people, you want people who know what they're doing. And I guess the test of Benjamin Netanyahu now is whether he takes up that offer and doesn't run a hard right government and considers, I suppose you could put it, the state of Israel versus his own position, that ongoing legal battle that he's facing, whether he can put that to one side and say, right now, I need to fight a war, you need unity, I need a unity government.
And where are we going with this now, Iris? Are we going to see a land invasion? How do you feel as your role as the correspondent in Jerusalem of many years standing? What is your perception?
I was listening to an Israeli analyst who was for many years reporting in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, and he said that this is Hamas's 9/11. They've exceeded beyond their expectations. They didn't think they would get this far or do this well in their own terms. And what that means is that perhaps there will be, like the old rules are broken, are over now. There's not going to be an Israeli airstrike in response and that'll be that. We could well see a ground invasion. And I have heard a report tonight that Israel's defense minister was speaking to Lloyd Austin, to the US Secretary of Defense, and said to him, this particular invasion now could be broader. So I think everybody is thinking about a possible ground invasion. And I think Hamas must be thinking about that too, because there is a feeling that this is different. For the first time since 1973, for the first time in 50 years, Israel has used the words, we are at war. And Israel's Prime Minister said, this is not just some operation, this is a war. And a war usually implies a ground offensive.
Thank you to Iris Makler. Iris Makler speaking to us from Jerusalem.